After defeating the mighty dragon Grigori and taking the mantle as the seneschal, Chad Rook experiences a dream he has never had before. He has visions of distorted beasts never before seen, even an intangible form looking like death itself. His visions foreshadows a mighty foe and several fantastical beasts in a land far off, somewhere unknown. He sees countless lifetimes, countless journeys of experience and fighting, countless cycles of the dragons coming, its subsequent defeat, and becoming seneschal, only for it all to repeat. Hi, I'm Browsley, and this is sort of a sequel to my Dragons Dogma retrospective, so if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend you check that out to get a full picture. And yes, I realize I'm taking some artistic liberties with canonizing the New Game Plus system of this game. He wakes up and thinks to himself that it all seems familiar, but he still can't put his finger on this uneasy feeling. He feels different, stronger, as if he himself has experienced all these countless lifetimes. That can't be, he reasons to himself. Still, the dream he just had murmurs in the back of his mind, and the deja vu he's experiencing is making him uneasy. Chad, however, eventually gets up and follows his instincts. He picks a vocation and heads on out, where he overhears a familiar conversation.
You say it left a glowing scar?
Yes. The wound has closed, and it seems the worst has passed, but his heart lies silent.
If you would face me.
Adara and Kina talk about the scar on Chad's chest, the way it glows, and how his heart now lies still. Adara exclaims that this is ill magic and that one needs to be careful with such things. He then leaves to talk to someone else about this and orders Kina to keep an eye on Chad.
You should be abed. I wish you would not strain yourself so. I worry for you, cuz.
Another deja vu. After his talk with Kina, he continues out and follows the path all the way down past the inn and towards the village gate. He sees a familiar face popping out of the sky and gets berated with knowledge he already feels he possesses. Chad, and the waste of space, follows the trail to the encampment, enters a conversation with the Rift, slaughters the Cyclops, and is reacquainted with the long-lost Bay. The trio then talks with Mercedes and rests. A Hydra appears and they dispose of it. It all feels way too familiar for the dreams to only be dreams. Also, it all feels way easier than it should. Chad Rook finally snaps out of what could only be described as a trance and remembers the visions of the mysterious place. He follows his instincts and heads back to Cathedral, disposing of some trash along the way. Once there, the duo searches the whole day for some sort of clue as to how to get to the mysterious location Chad Rook had visions of. Day turns to night and suddenly they notice a strange figure on the pier. They head on over and are introduced to Olra. She urges Chad Rook and BJ to follow her to what she refers to as the Bitterblack Isles. And so, a new adventure begins.
You can see me. Then you are one known to the dragon, bound within the eternal ring. I have dire need of the Arisen's strength. Please, sir, Will you lend me your aid? You have my eternal thanks. You speak now to a shadow of sorts. My flesh resides elsewhere. I would take you there now, if it please you. I ask you, is that the fate you've chosen of your own will? You are arisen. We stand now on Bitterblack Isle, far as sea from the cove we departed. I would ask you to explore its depths.
They step ashore and are immediately taken aback by the immense feeling of dread that this place gives off.
Were it possible, I would not send you off with so meager an explanation. But I fear I myself do not know it better. My past, my aims in coming here, all of it is lost, as in a fog. All I know is that I, like you, was called here, and am bound to stay. I sensed you in the distance and called to you for help. I knew somehow, as by instinct, that you could grant the wish of the one who dwells below. Just as I know my role here is to aid you in that pursuit.
There isn't much information on the land of Bitterblack Isle. This place is a giant labyrinth that is taking many adventurers seeking glory as its victims. All who enter disappear, never to see the light of day ever again. This place is home to unspeakable monstrosities never before seen in the mainland of Grances. The island simply appears, fully formed, suggesting some sort of magical origin, and is similar to the Everfall in terms of style and layout. It has tight corners, dark places, giant holes, and open spaces. Bitterblack Isle is also thought to be outside the plane of existence that Grances exists in. It is always night and with a full moon, whereas there is no moon over Grances. Furthermore, certain Arisen on the island are unaffected by the death of the dragon, unlike other Arisen living in Grances, indicating it being outside the rules of the main land of Grances. The deeper one travels in the labyrinth of Bitterblack Isle, the air grows thicker, and the rotting smell travels in the halls faster and farther, which may attract even more dire monsters. Bitterblack Isle contains the strongest enemies in the entire game. In addition to demons, dragons, and all manner of unholy creatures, it is said that Death Incarnate haunts the labyrinth within, waiting to slay any Arisen that dares to enter its halls. One also has a chance of happening upon dead Arisen, whose bodies give their final thoughts or warnings for new visitors. Chad then has a flash of a former life, where he fought with a large magical mace and a shield. The Bonk Lord of a previous life is calling to him, and he promptly changes into a more comfortable vocation, the Mystic Knight. Orla seems to have some equipment in her inventory from previous Arisen's journeys, and Chad takes the opportunity to don some sick-looking armor. I must say, the possibilities for fashion in this game are endless. He looks so cool. Chad and BJ then head on over to the Rift Stone. Chad's visions have shown him a new way to interact with it. He touches it and is suddenly within a plane outside of the mortal realm. Here, several pawns of other Arisens from across dimensions arrive to show their willingness to aid Chad in his adventure. While Chad is basically slave shopping, I want to quickly talk about this awesome feature. I completely forgot to mention it in the last vid, but the pawn rental system is super cool. Each Arisen's pawn, if the player is connected to the internet, is linked to the Rift Zone. This makes it so that other players can either spend Rift Crystals to hire them, or if they're friends on the system one is playing on, rent them for free. And after you're done with them, you can send them back to their world with a gift. After some time, Chad has found 2 worthy companions, and the squad composed of the Strider Nearly and the fighter Derpington venture forth onwards towards the giant door. It slowly opens and shows an epitaph, a stone slab etched with ancient stories of long-lost adventurers that would try their luck in this forsaken place. Unbeknownst to Chad and Beach Jesus, they will in their adventure find several lost notes of other adventures. Back with our heroes, they have already faced several new enemies. Poison dogs, larger, more dangerous goblins, and even Death itself. Death is a giant shadowy figure covered in a black cloak. He is only ever encountered on Bitterblack Isle, and is quite larger than many creatures in the realm, and hovers ominously above the ground. Death has no face, only a gaping black hole that looks back at any unfortunate soul that encounters him. I am no fan of Death in this game. The enemy, not the mechanic. He has insane range as well as an insta-kill move with his scythe. His lantern allows him to cast sleep, which will stun anyone within range. Death proves to be too big of a threat at the moment, so they flee after Derpington meets a tragic end by Death's hand, or scythe to be exact. They enter a large room called the Duskmoon Tower.
Welcome, good Arisen. 3 days this one. A week, perhaps. A favoured game of mine, guessing the lifespan of those who enter these halls. Nothing personal, mind. And rest easy, friend. 3 score guesses here now have yet to hit the mark once.
The person they meet is named Barak. He is an Arisen as well. However, Barak has abandoned his duty as an Arisen. He, like other Arisen, was called to Bitterblack Isle by some mysterious force, and found a place to his liking. His pawn is nowhere to be seen. He, as a former apothecary, has used the labyrinth as a source for rare and unusual alchemical ingredients for an unknown amount of time. Unbeknownst to Chad and BJ, he will be encountered within several locations of Bitterblack Isle. Barak proves to be quite the asset to our heroes as he sells rare items as well as being able to further upgrade gear that has been Dragonforged. Dragonforged gear is the gear that has been strengthened in Wormfire, done through slaying dragons of all kinds, which I think is a great feature since now one has 2 extra level ups for one's gear. Although how and why he has infinite amounts of Dragonfire so readily available is still a mystery. Chad and BJ follow the force that's pulling them and find themselves in the Ward of Regret, a treacherous hallway full of treasure and monstrous beings. They find remnants of an old broken rift zone, alluding to something sinister happening in this place. Further on, past the broken rift zone, they encounter giant undead, who, as the name suggests, are the bigger and less good-looking big brother of the normal undead plague in Grancis. Chad and BJ dispose of these and head on out to what can only be described as some sort of dock. The path along the wooden boards over the underground water reservoir has a chest that Chadrook has no problem opening. It has, however, become the permanent residence of a man-eater. The man-eater is a yellow worm-like creature resembling the tentacles of an evil eye. These are dangerous and spring out like some fucked up jack-in-the-box to eat anyone that dares open the lid of its trap. Like the mimic from Dark Souls. BJ and Nilly manage to rescue Chad, and they somehow manage to kill the man-eater, even though he cast an insta-death spell, almost finishing BJ. A broken wall and a rough tunnel leads further into the area, and is infested with giant bats, which at this point really only pose as a nuisance. The further part of the ward is home to a troop of skeletons led by a skeleton brute, which is a giant skeleton which deals massive damage. Fortunately, however, Chad is equipped with a large blunt weapon, and we all know skeletons are weak to that stuff. The last room, leading to the Midnight Helix, contains several hanging bodies and a few undead and spellcasting skeletons. Our heroes are becoming accustomed to their newfound strength and dispose of the threats. They also take the opportunity to have a bit of relaxed fun. After a quick break, they enter the Midnight Helix, a large oval room with wooden bridges crisscrossing the room leading up to the top. On the far wall there's an enormous being chained up, a gore cyclops. The trio concludes it might be beneficial to leave the chained cyclops alone, and instead decide to deal with the several skeleton sorcerers and gargoyle infesting the helix. As our heroes fight their way closer and closer to the top, they notice several bodies and cages hanging from the ceiling, implying that this has been some sort of torture or prison room. For me, this prison theory is further strengthened by the giant chained up gore cyclops. After reaching the top of the helix, Chad finds what is called the void key. He picks it up and he hears a strange voice.
What garden of strange delights is this? What forgotten paradise? What font of endless diversion? The darkness, the stench of blood. We stand at the merry mouth of hell itself.
Was this perhaps the remnants of an old deceased arisen, wanting to give Chad his final warnings before passing on fully? He uses the liftstone Barrick gave them earlier to return to Orla. Liftstones are different from the fairy stones of Grancis. They seem to only work in Bitterblack Isle. Back with Orla, they manage their inventory and notice they've picked up something called cursed loot. Cursed item loot is also scattered throughout the island. One can lift this curse during a purification ritual done by Orla. Cursed items on Bitterblack Isle come in several forms: novelties, armors, weapons, and gears, all of which are available in 3 tiers, level 1, 2, and 3. The higher tiers generally yield better equipment, but also cost more rift crystals to get purified. Rift crystals is a type of currency that may be dropped as items, bought, or obtained as quest rewards. They can also be gained by a fellow arisen hiring one's main pawn. Purification rewards include useful, rare and unusual items, and even scrolls that unlock secret augments. These rewards also include high-level weapon and armor pieces that are of greater quality than the equipment one can obtain in Grancis, some of which that have magical effects, and rings and bands which upgrade vocational skills to a 3rd tier when equipped. When the curse is lifted of one of the stones, one has a chance of getting a rare and powerful weapon, armor, ring or potions. Whatever the item may be, it waits within the halls of Bitterblack Isle. The nature of which item one gets is directly tied to the vocation you and your pawn has, and is categorized into 3 main ones. Vocation-specific items can be classed into 3 types, and are most often referred to as red for the melee-based vocations, yellow for daggers and bow-centered vocations, and blue for the spellcasting vocations. The colors used in vocation icons indicate to which class the vocation belongs. Hybrid vocation symbols have 2 colors signifying their blend of 2 vocations. For example, the assassin symbol is both red and yellow, indicating the use of both melee and bows and daggers. The picture on screen shows you which vocations one should have when purifying cursed items for the specific rewards. I both love and hate this. On one side of the spectrum, I am totally for the grind and replayability it gives the game. However, the sheer amount of luck one has to have to get every unique item from purifying is so insane that I can't even begin to explain it. I have played this game for so many hours across so many different platforms, and I have yet to get every unique armor, weapon and ring. Oh well, they purify some items and venture back to the Duskmoon Tower. The path back is now inhabited by a cyclops and several goblins, which pose no real threat to the squad. There seems, however, to be an underlying system of death surrounding the Isles. When a monster is slain, whatever it may be, they all leave behind a bloody, rotting corpse that does not disappear. Back at Duskmoon Tower, Chad, BJ, Neely, and Derpington search the area and find several doors which seem to be locked by some magical power. They take a mental note, open the door locked by the void key they acquired in the Midnight Helix, and enter the Vault of Defiled Truth. These names are so edgy. I love it. This area is a gloomy courtyard with maze-like passages and hard-to-reach balconies, dead ends and dangerous foes waiting to catch unfortunate adventurers off guard.
Leave me. Pray, taunt me no more. I can go no further.
Chad and Beaches fight the cockatrice and many hobgoblins and goblin shamans that resides in the courtyard. It is a difficult fight, but with our heroes' newfound powers, they find a way to dispose of them. Beach Jesus uses an ancient technique only ever used before by Italian plumbers, and Chad focuses and becomes a magical pitching machine. The fights in this game are so awesome. I didn't mention this earlier, but the length of these fights can range from just a few seconds up to double-digit minutes depending on your build and resources, and I for one find that really cool. After defeating the cockatrice, Chad and BJ explore the area for treasures before they head on further into the labyrinth. They now find themselves in the Gutter of Misery, a somewhat quiet place with only a few leapworms, leech-like creatures that, as the name suggests, leap onto any unlucky enough to be nearby. Before going further down, our heroes try the stairs leading up and enters the Warrior's Respite. This is some sort of sanctuary with another destroyed rift zone and a healing spring. A hole in the wall leads to a sort of built-in hut where Barak somehow has teleported. The squad searches the hut and robs Barak blind of his thorwblasts and find the Moonbeam gem in the attic. This gem is used as a key to open the magical doors back at Duskmoon Tower. Chad then pockets the gem, and our heroes venture forth. The path leads them to some sort of sewer system with tons of winding corridors and dead ends. They decide to focus on the force pulling them through the labyrinth. The sewers are home to floating eyeballs shooting lasers and camouflaged saurians. These pose no real threat to our Doomsday Squad, and soon they find themselves in the Shrine of Futile Truths.
I believed myself the one to end the great cycle, to free the world. Yet here I reach my meager end, lost in quiet oblivion.
Here, they hear another fallen arisen speak before they see the mother of all Japanese adult cartoons descend from the ceiling. It's the Geyser. Not even a minute into the fight, Chad is already stricken with the slow curse, and tries desperately to walk it off. All the while, Neely tries to chuck an explosive barrel at it. The spell wears off and Chad jumps over and grabs a hold of the geyser's eyeball, drugs himself, and wails away. The aforementioned drugs are periapts, conquerors and demons periapts respectively. These enhance the user's attack power for 1 minute and can be stacked up to 4 times. Conqueror's periapts boosts the user's strength, and the demons boosts the user's magic attack. Before long, they all rally behind the magical sphere, which the geyser made but somehow damages it. The sphere melts the giant eyeball, and before you know it, the squad is victorious. Once the tentacle monster has been defeated, the squad is once again reunited with Barak. He says something about the rules of this place seemingly not affecting Chad, but doesn't seem to care all that much.
Well, this is a surprise. Can you just come and go as you please then? Huh, I thought everyone come to this place was lost to the world outside, myself included. Oh well, that's the exception what proves the rule, or so they say. Now, will you have a look? I'll see you don't regret it.
The squad then heads out the gate, examines the ominous looking glowing slate, and opens up a shortcut. Okay, now I want to talk directly to you. The next part is something I learned from this guy, and I have to show you guys as well because I freaking love that it's possible. And be sure to have your thorwblasts. First, you need to be alone, so I've sent all my pawns away. Secondly, no lantern. Then simply run up, jump down here and stay by this side until death has circled around.
Forgive me, my brothers. I take our dreams.
Climb up here and face this way. Then just chuck 4 thorwblasts at him as fast as you can. And whoops. Death falls to its death. It's freaking beautiful. The reason why this works is seemingly because Death has yet to notice the Arisen, and therefore there's some sort of extra sneak damage. Also, this is a pretty easy way of getting a few levels in any vocation really. Well, you do however have to kill the floating hentai monster first, so I guess you need to have some levels in the bag. I feel like I should also clarify that this only works once per playthrough. So if you want to do this again, you have to beat the game and start New Game Plus or enter hard mode. And if you already are in hard mode, you just change your difficulty to normal and then back to hard mode from the main menu, and then you start New Game Plus. Oh, okay, back to the video. After making the flying death die by falling, yes, I understand the hilarity of that sentence, Chad disposes of the undead plaguing the bridge. However, the stench of their rotting corpses carries through the halls of the labyrinth and attracts an elder ogre. Chad decides to channel his inner pitching machine and goes to town on it. Even though Chad could easily destroy this poor Shrek wannabe, he decides to play with it a bit. He lures it closer and, well, what do you know, it's as clever as one would have thought. It seems that the ogres in Grancis and Bitterblack Isle share the same IQ. Chad rushes back to pick up his squad, and they venture further into the Bitterblack Labyrinth. They fight off some giant skeletons before feeling a pull towards an ominous looking door.
But I would not wish this fate on any other.
They enter a hall engulfed in constant flames, with lizards also covered in fire. These are called pyrosaurians. It's a subspecies of saurians which dwells within the Bitterblack Isle. These Pyrosaurians prove quite formidable, but our heroes still manage to exit the battle victorious. Further on, they enter a large cathedral-like room, which is named the Pilgrim's Gauntlet. This room is full of hostile pawns. These are confused, masterless pawns. They continue to shout out how they wish to fight by the Arisen side, but become hostile when approached. The corrupted pawns are able to sport the main vocations, as well as the hybrid one, Magic Archer. Why this is, I am not sure. Many of the corrupted pawns also wear equipment described as Beyond the Rift. This further suggests that the Bitterblack Isle is outside the world of Grancis. While fighting these corrupted pawns, Chad, BJ, Nilly and Derpington can hear them shout lines like "I'll waver no more" and "To be by your side once more Arisen," implying that even though they are masterless and possessed, they still have some recollection of their duty as pawns. After disposing of the corrupted pawns, Chad finds another glowing slate, and understands that these were the ones he was tasked to find all 10 of. He takes a mental note and continues. He later finds a void key. And holy, where did that come from? A cursed dragon just instantly transmissions from God knows where. These putrid dragons spew foul, vile gas that can cause several different debilitations, as well as rot any time-sensitive items in Chad's inventory, such as the blessed flower. Instead of a heart, they have a single purple crystal in their chest. A battle ensues and Chad and the squad shows that they have become a force to be reckoned with. The fight drags on, however, but Nilly, Derpington and BJ proves that they are great assets to the Arisen. Nilly fires a hail of exploding arrows on the cursed overgrown lizard, and Derpington charges in with devastating blows. All while Beach Jesus takes on the mantle of a jumping madman, swinging his giant hammer. They eventually slay the dragon, and the fire it emits, after its defeat, the dragon forges some of Chad's gear. Nice. They head on back to find themselves on a bridge inhabited by harpies. However, these quickly fall to Chad's magic balls. Orbs. Chad finds another slate and they follow the stairways down. This place is called the Fortress of Remembrance. This place is a tall structure with winding stairwells going further down and deeper into the labyrinth. They find a pathway leading to a large door and head on in. Once inside, they hear strange noises. What sounds like great wings flapping, and is that electricity? Further in, they go and see 2 dragon-like beasts, a worm and a wyvern. The wyvern is one of the smaller cousins of the dragons and are a species of the lesser dragon type, along with the dragon worm. The wyvern's heart is located on its back. Thus, if mounted when aloft, the wyvern will make strong attempts to throw the attacker off. Unlike their drake cousins, the wyverns do not breathe fire. They instead use a strong lightning-based breath attack that can throw their foes into the air. Consequently, they are significantly resistant to the thunder element. Wyverns are strong flyers and can cast spells, though these are less powerful than the worms. Unlike its cousin, the wyvern rarely flies. It is, however, a powerful spellcaster, able to repeatedly and rapidly incant strong spells such as Bowlight. Whilst the drake has an affinity to fire and the wyvern to lightning, the worm is strong with the ice element. This makes them vulnerable to fire-based spells and weapons. Defeating either of these beasts has a chance of dragon forging their Arisen's equipment. After clearing what is named the Black Abbey, the squad then ventures forth and further down the fortress. They find a broken wrist stone and an eliminator, which are extremely dangerous Taurus human hybrids wielding huge hammers. They deal massive damage and are a pain in the caboose in cramped places. Still, Nilly and the rest do swift work of it and continue. On the bridge, Chad gets sloppy and gets munched by a man-eater, but luckily, Derpington has foreseen Chad's poor judgment and is quick to save him. Chad then uses the void key they found in the Pilgrim's Gauntlet and enters the Towers of Treasons Repaid. This place is similar to the Midnight Helix with winding wooden stairways held together with rope. Chad and the rest fight their way down through goblin shamans and fighting off gore cyclops at the bottom. They spend some time looting the area before continuing. They enter the Forsaken Cathedral. This corridor is home to giant undead who has to be the tankiest damn enemies in the entire game. Chad gets warred by another man-eater and BJ rescues him. Then a spiral staircase leads the group down to what seems to be a safe passage, but then they meet two armored skeletons. These skeletons are the silver and golden knights of Bitterblack Isle, with both golden and silver armor reminiscent of the chimeric armor. These skeleton warriors often fight alongside one another. However, since they are skeletons, they're quite weak to blunt damage. The golden knight is taken out quite quickly by the squad before it's the silver knight's turn. Chad has enchanted his shield with holy magic and does a perfect block, unleashing a storm of holy damage upon the knight. It begins to cast some type of spell, but nearly fires a flurry of exploding bolts onto the knight and it perishes. Both the silver and golden knights are capable of resurrection if the other knight is down first. The fight is not over until both of them are taken out. Our heroes continue, loot the area and find another slate containing texts. However, the stench of their defeated foes sweep through the isle and lure forth an elder ogre. These feral beasts have proven to be quite thick in the head when fought by ledges, but in an enclosed space like this, they are quite formidable. Or rather, they can be, when not encountered by a god surrounded by 3 demigods. Damn, it stood no chance. They follow the stairs down and fight off both undead and banshees and take a breather by the rift stone so the pawns may replenish their HP. This is a neat little mechanic, I think. Finding rift stones and then letting the rift stone replenish the health of the pawns. The path ahead leads Chad through a hallway filled to the brim with skeletons. Countless have perished in this place, and Chad wonders what may be the source of this slaughter. Through a door, the squad is introduced to the Dark Bishop, directly lifted from the wiki. Once a high-esteemed archpriest of a holy order, the Dark Bishop was twisted by the many horrors of Bitterblack Isle into a corrupted, malformed version of his former self. The Dark Bishop carries the archstaff Solar Providence and is a powerful spellcaster, wrapped in a protective sacred aura. He is capable of casting a magnitude of powerful spells and various forms of incantations to obliterate the ones unfortunate enough to encounter him. He also has a pet cursed dragon as his ally, and can manipulate it to do his will. The squad quickly deals with the dragon in hopes of making the bishop more susceptible to damage. Everyone in the squad does their part beautifully. Beach Jesus uses the ancient bounce and bonk strat handed down by generations. Derpington follows through and slashes the bishop where the sun doesn't shine. Nilly is relentless with her firecracking arrows, and Chadwick is once again a human pitching machine. While the team is ganking the poor bishop, Chad notices an incantation circle forming around him. His spider senses tingle and he books it out of there, but not fast enough to not feel the effects of the spell. Phew, he thinks to himself. Dodged a bullet on that one. The squad then finishes off the bishop, and the door leading forward opens by some mysterious force. I really like this fight. If you for some reason have trouble killing the bishop, he is quite weak to both dark and physical damage. He also has a chance, if you take too long after killing the dragon, to resurrect it, and thus making the fight even longer than first anticipated. Also, the design of the bishop is awesome, although I wish they would have done something a bit different than just retexturing the lich. Chad and his crew then ventures through the gate they just opened and speaks to Barak.
This little island, and what lies beneath it, are a pretty mess, don't you think? I've done my share of exploring, and all over this place appears in no map or text I've ever seen. Even the halls that link one chamber to the next are mad. The work of some diabolic magic, like as not. A place so steeped in rancor just begs for conquest, doesn't it? Gets my juices flowing.
After a quick chat, they head on further into the labyrinth, into the Rotwood Depository. Chad decides to prepare and enchants the whole squad with holy magic. The enemies they find here are called wraiths. These are ghosts with a red hue, whose attacks are kind of like those of other ghosts. They can possess their victims, draining their health, as well as instantly send an already unconscious spawn back to the rift. The possession attack is especially dangerous when the victim is at low health. At high health, the onset and damage is slow and rather weak, however. Wraiths have a chance of inflicting different debilitations on the player, or their pawns, by charging through them like a bullet. These are debilitations like Drenched and Curse. Like other incorporeal enemies like ghosts, wraiths have a high resistance against dark and are quite weak against holy magic. They cannot be damaged by physical attacks, unless they are possessing either a pawn or the Arisen. I am a bit ambivalent of the wraiths. On one hand, I really like the versatility they force us as players to embody, but at the same time they are a pain in the ass to fight. Let's just say we have a love-hate relationship. Further on, they encounter a rather magic-resistant Saurian. Fortunately though, it is not resistant to being fucking ganked. After some time spent looting, our heroes find what looks like a kitchen of sorts. It's inhabited by a pack of wraiths and Saurians, which proved to be somewhat of a challenge. This kitchen area is interesting, however. It looked like this used to be a safe place where other Arisens perhaps used this as a sanctuary alongside their pawns when exploring the Isle, before being overrun by monsters. Well, that's just my headcanon though. I'm just freeballing here. Further on, Chad encounters yet another Eliminator. And while trying to get to a better location for fighting it, Chad notices that an Elder Ogre has been summoned as well, alongside skeleton sorcerers. This is a cramped place, similar to a prison of sorts. Chad quickly disposes of the sorcerer, but finds himself being gnawed on by the Ogre. Luckily, he's able to pop a potion before meeting his doom between those wretched teeth. After finally escaping the Ogre's clutches, he is pummeled by the Eliminator, who prepares for a one-shot on a now knocked down Chad.
I'm going to kill you?
Beast Jesus comes to the rescue and fires an arrow straight to the Eliminator's head. Chad then notices some sort of cauldron and activates it. It gives up some magical light which seems to damage both the Ogre and the Eliminator. The fight continues and our heroes fight valiantly. Chad once again gets choked, and this time he perishes. Luckily he was carrying a wake stone, which are red heart-shaped stones that can resurrect the Arisen or any human ally if they die. Chad manages to off the Eliminator with a combo of the Ruinous Sigil, which forms a barrier around the caster that harms its foes, and the Italian style of Jump and Bonk. Shortly after, the Ogre falls as well. Onwards to the Forgotten Hall, another deadly fight ensues. A lich hovers towards the team while summoning undead, who all promptly fall. However, the stench of their rotten corpses attracts some heinous beings. Garm. They are huge, muscular, wolf-like quadrupedal beasts that can be encountered in packs of 2 or 3, or as solitary individuals, although we all know that wolves hunt in packs. Garm are necrophagous creatures. This means that the stench of death and rotten corpses attracts them. A chaotic fight ensues, and after some frantic fighting, the Garm are gone. Nailed it. I am quite ambivalent to the whole randomly spawning enemies of Bitterblack Isle. I don't really know what to think. They add a huge amount of challenge when suddenly spawning during or after a big fight, and can cause quite a bit of chaos when trying to manage one's curatives. I like it, and I hate it. I can't stress enough how many times a random enemy spawn has destroyed a run for me when trying to run through the Isles and then being forced back to an autosave 20 minutes ago. Remember to save often, children. Our heroes continue and find a huge grand hall with one chained gore cyclops on each side, with the ground surrounding them being inhabited by corrupted pawns. In my opinion, this is a pretty challenging room. It's dark, full of hard-hitting enemies, and if you somehow manage to damage the gore cyclops chained up, they'll break free and join the fight. We can see Chad and the squad take on the pawns as well as one of the gore cyclops, but their resources are starting to dry up and they decide to make a tactical retreat. The force pulling Chadbrook deeper into the labyrinth is telling him that he'll need all the help he can get. The squad enters the Bloodless Stockade, who harbors a door leading into the Arisen's refuge. Here, Chad finds another Moonbeam gem, reminding him of the mysterious doors in the Duskmoon Tower. I'll show you a little trick there later in the video. He talks to Barak, who begins reminiscing of his life and his mortality.
It's been many a year since I parted ways with my heart, and I can't say as I miss it much. Were I still mortal, being stranded on this island hell might have caused me some bother.
Chad decides to manage his inventory a bit before continuing. This refuge, as well as the other refuge found earlier, contains a resting bench if one needs to restore some stamina and health, as well as a notice board containing different quests for the path ahead. Further on, they dispose of another eliminator, as well as some corrupted pawns. Chad loots the area, gets jumped on once again, and continues towards the force. On his way further into the Bitterblack Isle, he sees a ghost. This is a former Arisen. He vanishes and Chad hears a voice.
In memory of Grete. Silent-hearted, dragon-forged. With hair of gold and will of tempered steel. You ransomed me from a village burnt to ash, instilled life and fight. Dearest mentor, I commend you now to rest eternal. Your servant, bereft of master and memory, I keep now myself. She lives on, your mirror in soul and body both. And I will not lose her as we have lost you. This I swear before your empty grave.
After a speech with longer art pauses than Obama, Death appears once again. I guess getting tossed into a waterfall didn't really do the trick. They decide to flee from Death, but instead destroys an elder ogre that randomly spawns in front of them. They enter a door leading to the spare yard of Scant Mercy and hears a conversation between what I think is the Arisen and someone else.
Offer your beloved in forfeit, and I shall see your will done.
Choose! How am I to choose? No matter my answer, the price is death. A hollow choice. Who am I to stand as arbiter of two lives? What would you have me do? You brought me here. You. If this be the will of the gods, the order of the world, then damn the lot of them. I'll tear the whole of it asunder!
Very well. If that be your wish, I shall claim my price.
Stop! No!
This is where we start to get a bit more information on what really happened here. With an Arisen trying to save his beloved, the dragon holding her hostage, and the Arisen cursing the cycle. We will go even deeper into the lore of this DLC later, in its own chapter so to speak, but just keep this in mind. Our heroes then encounter a large blue knight looking fellow, which is named the Living Armor. They have similar movesets to the Fighter and Mystic Knight vocations. They pose a considerable threat and are in the first phase vulnerable to physical damage, but once the armor comes off they're only vulnerable to magic damage. So it's advisable to destroy their armor with physical attacks and then pummel them with some enchanted gear or straight up magic. Or make them fall to their deaths, either from a ledge by the entrance or by the cliff edge of the arena. I guess no one is safe from gravity in this game. I must say that these enemies are extremely cool looking to me. The kid in me simply loves the design of the Living Armor. As well as being insanely strong with both Fighter and Mystic Knight abilities, its resistances are also pretty cool, making it a foe one has to either have a well-rounded team to take down, or have the ability to use both physical and magical attacks oneself. The fight drags on and Chad even has to use a Wake Stone. They are pretty handy. However, they manage to take down the armor after some time. They find another slate and head on into the Fallen City. The Falling City has a number of houses, small streets, and easily accessible roofs containing several chests and different loot. Chad and the squad carefully follow the streets of the Fallen City, and on their way towards the giant gate, they hear several memories of a past Arisen's life.
You have been chosen. So saying, the worm pries the heart from my breast. I was made Arisen, known to the dragon, and bound to hunt it. It is a fate I embrace. What use have I for a heart left hollow? In a world without sweet Grete, my mentor, my mother, my beloved. I live only to see the dragon that claimed her slain. I will see its scaly hide stripped from bone by my hands ere I rest. Arisen, bearer of the dragon's mark, undying corpse, enjoined to make your will manifest. If my voice reaches you, heed me well. The Arisen, the Seneschal, the whole cursed world, all is but an illusion. A meaningless refrain, a hollow echo. What sense is there in giving one's life for these falsehoods? I damn them all. And I will not cease in my destruction until the last senseless cycle is broken, the last bond rent to dust.
I feel it in the marrow of my bones. Some force beckons me beyond. I will make for it, though my body fail along the way.
The ghosts and voices lead Chad and the crew towards the force that has been pulling them through the labyrinth all this time, and they enter the Bitterblack Sanctum, where another voice calls out to them.
I have raised and wrought destruction. Naught shall remain.
This is Daemon. Daemon is a former Arisen from countless lifetimes ago. He refused to make a choice when confronting the dragon, and thus the dragon transformed him into this abhorrent beast, mad from losing his loved ones. It is believed that Daemon was created out of the previous Arisen's sheer hatred for the destiny he felt was thrust upon him. Daemon fed himself with ill thoughts for countless centuries, feeding on poor Arisen, who met their doom in this dungeon as well as his own host. His true strength is unknown. Given the incredible amount of corrupted and ill thoughts and feelings Daemon has consumed over the millennia, it will be safe to call it the embodiment of mankind's chaos, humanity's desire to end the infinite cycle. Despite Daemon's hulking size, he is a powerful and agile fighter with incredible magical affinity and brute force. He will use smart tactics to lure the party into disarray, which makes him a tough opponent. Daemon is quite resistant to both physical and magical attacks, although, as if this was Call of Duty, one should go for headshots. That's his greatest weakness. Halfway through battle, Daemon will begin to change up his pace, beginning to cast deadly combinations of magic that may deal serious damage to both the Arisen and their pawns. He also has this special move where he creates a dangerous void below him, pulling whatever living being in the vicinity closer and inevitably down to their demise and out of this world. This fight is so cool. This area, this boss room, it all looks so great. You can tell that I'm super biased of this game. This is just a love letter at this point. During the fight, Daemon can be heard speaking directly to the Arisen fighting him, telling him basically that there's no use in fighting, and anyone trying to fight the cycle is doomed to fail. The party proves to Daemon that his reign is over, and after some time they manage to force him to his knees, with Derpington dealing the killing blow. Nice. He falls to the ground and light begins to burst out of his chest. This is the Arisen Ash.
Still-hearted kinsman, you have my thanks. To destroy is simpler than to create, and harder still is to see aught to fruition, to end it rightly. The infinite chain is yours, Arisen, to grant measure, to give what shape you will. And I, at last, can step beyond its span. My Grete, dearest Olra.
Chad and the crew will loot the area before leaving the sanctum, and a cutscene follows.
I fancied myself a strong man. Strong enough to protect someone. Strong enough to love someone. I longed to prove it, to myself as much as any other. Longed to show that I could give aught back and not simply take. And yet, in that moment, I chose to cast it all away. Though I cursed the world, what was writ true in my soul was an apology to you and our master who fostered a soul within you.
You have not left to prove, my sweet, for I have known your love, and know it still. I have e'er wished nothing more than to share in your world, be it within the endless chain or beyond. Let us find our place together.
I promise we will try to make sense of this in just a few minutes.
I feel as if freshly awakened from some long dream. Yet I heard clear each word exchanged between you and the one who possessed me. I remember them still. That woman. She too was named Olra. Perhaps it was that chance bond that led her spirit to me. And through me she called to you, to one whose strength of will outmatched the master of this place. Arisen or no, my own will seems a guttering candle to your sun. I shall remain here a while, I think, to contemplate the meaning of our meeting here. I must believe my claiming this body, my calling you here, held some meaning.
After defeating Daemon, several changes happen to the Isles. New enemies spawn in new locations, chests hold new loot, and the enemies have become even tougher. Shadrook learns that Daemon, even though he has just purged from the Isle, is still alive. Therefore, the squad decides to take one last trek through the Bitterblack Labyrinth, with once and for all defeating the incarnation of corrupted thoughts in mind. I love this mechanic. When defeating the main boss of the DLC, the whole Isle simply levels up, closing off previously opened shortcuts and forcing you through once again. Alright, I don't love the fact that the shortcuts are closed off, but yeah. Still, it's not all good vibes. It does feel a bit like a shortcut to simply force the player through the same dungeon a second time, to really experience a full DLC, instead of unlocking a completely new area or something of that nature. However, it's not the exact same. Enemies, as previously mentioned, have been buffed considerably and scattered around the Isles. We'll encounter several beefier enemies in places they never would have been before. I like to fantasize that Daemon being defeated made the countless beasts of Bitterblack Isle less scared and thus decided to come out of hiding. Our heroes fight their way through countless enemies, now spawned in new locations, as well as finding new loot. Even the bosses that once were defeated have come back. However, none of these new enemies pose any real threat to the now Bitterblack veterans of Chadbrook and BJ's squad. Back in the Duskmoon Tower, I can finally show you the neat little trick that'll save you the Moonbeam gems. Make sure you're alone, since the pawns have a habit of breaking stuff. Pick a door, pick up a barrel and place it on one side. I can't quite remember if the sides really matter, since I seem to remember doing it on both sides. Pick up another barrel and start jumping towards the corner of the door. After placing an object, it seems to not have any collision for a short amount of time, and then if you hold another barrel, for example, and start jumping inside of the first barrel, it will suddenly get the collision back and pop, you right through the door. This only works with characters that are kinda tall, so the shorter ones just bounce off and out of the barrel. This way you can bypass all the doors without using a single Moonbeam gem. Neat. Alright, back to the story. The trek goes through familiar rooms now filled to the brim with several new powerful foes. However, the need for void keys are luckily now void. They enter the chasm with the geyser and slaughters it. Further on they fight a ton of eliminators as well as liches, garms and knights. Back with the Dark Bishop and his pet dragon, our heroes make quick work of him. It also helps tremendously that he's glitched himself in the doorway. They continue, dodge death yet again, and enters the Grand Hall just before the Fallen City. Here there's now 2 dragons, which fall quickly. Now onto the final stretch. The Fallen City is now home to a Thunder Wyvern, several living armors and eliminators. Chad and his team fight relentlessly against these formidable foes for quite some time, before heading into the final chamber to fight Daemon once again. The 4 warriors attack the Great Beast with a ferocity only ever before seen in Americans during Black Friday. And Daemon once again faces defeat by the hands of Chadrook and his 3 musketeers. However, and I find this extremely cool,
Slave to a broken order, dare you look upon the truth? I have seen the scattering of countless myriad souls. They gather and flame to become as the river of time, expanding to fill the firmament.
You think you've finally beaten the biggest baddie of the game once and for all, but then he starts coughing and a freaking face erupts from his abdomen. Flawless. Daemon's final form awakens and thus begins the most unforgiving fight in Dragons Dogma, at least in my opinion. I had more attempts on this than I'd like to admit, trying to get all 3 pawns through alive, as well as not abusing the periapts Chad has been chowing down on through the whole of Bitterblack Isle. Second form Daemon ups his repertoire when it comes to attacks. One of the coolest in my opinion, but also the hardest to dodge, is this attack where he summons 2 large arms and either swipes across the arena or tries to give you a hug. It looks awesome, and it has this immense aura of unbeatable over him, I feel. The fight makes both Chad and the gang struggle, but they all are able to deal substantial damage to the giant beasts. However, whenever Chad tries to climb to deal some damage up close, Daemon creates a fiery force field which deals massive damage to Chad. After some time, Daemon unleashes his ultimate attack, the Rift Vortex. Here I noticed something I've never seen before. Chad's Great Cannon goes through the other Great Cannon orb before targeting Daemon. I've never seen this, and this helped out tremendously during the last stretch of the fight. Unfortunately, all 3 pawns start getting dragged into it before Chad can stun Daemon out of the attack. Or, well, dragged is a stupid way of putting it. All of them rushed B and got bodied. Now it's only up to Chad to end this. Daemon has now vanquished all pawns and starts some sort of incubation. Chad sees this as an opportunity and buffs himself, and throws several high velocity magic orbs towards Daemon and finally deals the finishing blow. Daemon's awakened form falls to the ground and rots away, uncovering a human figure whilst an ominous voice talks in the background in an unknown language. The body is the body of the arisen Ash, finally laid to rest after centuries of rage and hatred. Finally, we'll talk a bit about the lore. The Dragons Dogma wikis, don't fail me now! If this wasn't obvious from the appearance after defeating Daemon's first form, the former Arisen Ash is in fact the person who, after a curse, became Daemon. He was only a young boy when his hometown was destroyed, much like Asardis in the beginning of the game, and Ash was subsequently taken care of by an Arisen and her pawn. This was the Arisen Grete, and her pawn Olra. Grete later became a sort of mother figure for the now orphaned Ash, and he looked up to her as his mentor. His love for Greta was unquestionably deep. The Arisen Greta managed to defeat the dragon, but somehow died in the battle against the Seneschal, and thus became a dragon herself. Olra, now without an Arisen, decided to return to Ash. These two later developed a great love for each other. Ash, on some later point, it's unknown exactly how long after, became an Arisen himself. However, fate has its way of being incredibly vile at times, and the dragon Ash was tasked to slay was his former mentor Greta. Greta, who had fallen by the Seneschal's hand and subsequently taking the Ash's heart, making him an Arisen. The now dragon Greta took Ash's beloved Olra as hostage and gave him a choice: sacrifice his beloved or slay her, the dragon, the one he used to love as his own mother. This makes Ash curse the whole world and the immensely difficult choice he was forced to make. Ash curses everything and rejects everything, not wanting to give in to the fate he was given. However, Greta the dragon slew Olra and cursed Ash, turning him into Daemon, cursed to live outside the realm of the common world, which matched Ash's despair and hatred. Olra's spirit, after death, inhabited another Arisen and ventured forth to seek redemption for Ash and for them all. Oh my god, I love this game so much. And this story, full of love and despair, it's so full of passion. It's so clear to me that the developers really love their work during this DLC. Or that's at least the feeling I'm getting. I, of course, have used the Dragons Dogma wikis heavily in researching for this video, and I will link some of the more interesting articles in the description. Still, there's plenty more theories surrounding the lore of Bitterblack Isle. Still, I really like this short synopsis of why Daemon is the way he is. The community have pieced together the stories given to the player by Olra, Barak, the Slates, Daemon himself, and the remnants of former Arisen strewn about the Isle. And this is what I really love about games like this. With a bit of ambiguous storytelling, it forces the players, in my opinion, to piece the story together themselves, which gives way for the community to come together. I have in this video tried to compress it as well as I could, and also tried to pique your interest into maybe researching a bit yourself. Also, if you're interested in Dragons Dogma lore, I can't stress enough how good the Rift's channel is, so you should go check him out. He's a swell guy. I feel like all throughout the whole of Bitterblack Isle you can feel the dread, despair and hatred coming from the sanctum of Daemon. I like to think the quest marker canonically is a force pulling us towards the hatred and the common fate shared with Ash, also being an Arisen. Every time I play this I learn something new. I commend the makers of this game for creating such an awesome and deep game with the time constraints and setbacks that they had. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed taking a deeper dive into the lore than I am used to, and I had fun reading the wikis and figuring out new things on each page. Also a huge thank you to Spoogie, Derpington and D-Hill for letting me borrow their pawns. They were immensely helpful. I'll link their channels in the description, although I'm pretty sure you already know them. These videos do take some time to record, write and edit, so if you like this and this type of content, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribed and commented. I'll let the Slates chat picked up play in the background while the video is ending, so if you want to, you can pause and read them. Thank you again for watching and take care.